All right, it is time. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, for my best and worst of the year. Okay, this is where I am going to give you the stuff I liked, the stuff I loved, the stuff that was whatever from my favorite wrestling promotions. Okay, I'm gonna talk about what I thought was the best story from every wrestling promotion. I'm gonna talk about what was the worst story from every every wrestling promotion. I tipped my hand there a little bit. I'm gonna talk about what was the best moment I thought from an individual wrestling promotion. I'm gonna talk about the worst moment from an individual wrestling promotion. I'm gonna talk about who I thought was the superstar of the year from all these wrestling promotions. I'm gonna talk about what I think people talked about too much. I'm gonna talk about what I think people weren't talking about enough. All right, so you guys ready to get into it? All right, let's do it. All right, let's start off with WWE. All right, so WWE, I thought the best storyline in WWE in 2023 was the Bloodline. Give it up for the Bloodline. I can't say enough about this story. This story evolved from just a story about Roman Reigns manipulating his cousin into this vehicle for character development for Roman Reigns, for Jey Uso, for Sami Zayn, and it just really, it was amazing. It was awesome. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This was the storyline of this generation. This was this generation's Mega Powers Explode. This was this generation's NWO. This was this generation's Austin versus McMahon. This was it. This was the storyline of this generation, and it was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. But that also brings me to the worst story of the year, and I'm giving it to the Bloodline. But let me finish. When I say I'm giving the worst story to the Bloodline, I'm giving it to the Bloodline after the Bloodline Civil War. So leading up to the Bloodline Civil War, this was, again, all those great things I said about the story. This was phenomenal. This was absolutely phenomenal. The Bloodline Civil War should have been the end of it. That should have been the end of it. The Usos defeat Roman and Solo. Then maybe you do one more match with Roman and Jay. And you do the match with Roman and Jay. If the title was not involved, you could have cleanly ended the story. You could have cleanly ended the Bloodline story. We see that Jey Uso, we see what's become of Jey Uso, right? And there's no convincing me that you couldn't have done that. You couldn't have accomplished this if you had if you had taken the title off Roman at WrestleMania, and that would have freed up Roman to be able to lose to the Usos at Bloodline Civil War, and then lose one more time to Jey Uso, and then go away for a little bit while Jey Uso ascends. But instead, what they did, they had Roman just go away, and they had Solo just coming out here. They put Jay and Jimmy on separate shows. They did the thing where Jimmy betrayed Jay, and it just didn't make any sense. The explanations didn't make any sense. Jimmy was the one who gave Jay the push to help him get up out of the Bloodline, and now Jimmy wants back in the Bloodline. And for me, it's just, like I said, it was pouring water in the milk. Pouring water in the milk just to stretch it out when they could have given it a nice ending. And at this point, it's NWO Wolfpack. They could have ended it nice and cleanly, but instead you're just stretching it out with no clear end in sight. And the more and more things that are coming back, right? You got The Rock coming back. You got CM Punk coming back. And all of these things that are requiring the attendance of your top star. Now, with Roman being taken away to go do these other things, he can't do the Bloodline story. So you want us to just wait? You've already taken what, like 6 months off of the story. Now you want to take another half a year off of the story until Punk and Rock go away. Then you want to come back and finish the Bloodline story. I mean, to me, I think I got to, because I hate the fact that they have ruined what was such a great story by just trying to stretch it out. I also got to give the worst story of the year to the Bloodline after Civil War. So I'm sorry. You can hate it, but it is what it is. My best moment of the year for WWE is Bad Bunny's entrance at Backlash. That was absolutely phenomenal. It was one of the best moments, one of the best moments of the year, right? I loved how instead of having the stage, they had the tunnel entrance, but they had the LED walls on it. And then, with that crowd in Puerto Rico just being so all about Bad Bunny. And when they dropped that, Chambea, Bada, oh my God. Yo, that crowd went crazy. I never heard that song before, but the way that people just went sick, oh my God. That was absolutely, to me, one of the moments that just encapsulates the feeling. That's the feeling that you want when you go to a WWE show. That's the feeling that you want when you want to become a wrestler. Every wrestler who has ever wrestled, Steve Austin, The Rock, Hulk Hogan, they want to feel like Bad Bunny felt in that moment. When you walk into a stadium in the arena, Daniel Bryan knows that feeling, right? But that moment was what WWE and wrestling is all about. That was phenomenal. That was my best moment of the year. My worst moment of the year, Cody Rhodes losing to WrestleMania. I'm sorry. I was torn between that being my worst moment of the year and Jimmy costing Jay the match at SummerSlam. Now, don't get me wrong. Nobody thought Jay was going to actually win that match at SummerSlam, but when it was Jimmy who cost him the match, you just wiped your ass with all the storytelling you had done for the past few weeks. And so it was like, what the heck? So, but Cody losing at WrestleMania was kind of the thing that set all this in motion. And this is not about me loving Cody or thinking Cody deserves to be champion or anything like that. It's about just telling the right story. And again, I thought the moment was right for Cody. I was in that stadium in SoFi, out there in LA, and I'm telling you, every wrestling fan I talked to was there to see Cody win. And, again, I don't know how that extrapolates out to the rest of the wrestling world, but I think it feels pretty accurate. I think people wanted to see Cody take that title off of Roman. Roman had the title for something like 2.5 years at that point. And as I mentioned earlier with my thoughts on the Bloodline story post Bloodline Civil War, I think that Roman having the title really handcuffed their ability to put a proper ending to a great storyline. And again, this is not about me wanting to see Cody as champion. I just think that it stalled out. It stalled out such a great story. So Cody should have won at WrestleMania, and they could have still done absolutely everything they're doing right now, because Rock versus Roman doesn't need the title. It doesn't need the title at all. Punk versus Seth, that kind of needs a title. But you could still have Cody setting up to defend the world title. He could be defending it against Gunther. And Seth and Punk could be the undercard on one of the nights, and Roman and Rock could headline one of the nights. You could still do all of that. But the thing is, at this point, you can't take the title off of Roman between now and WrestleMania. You can't do that. So, listen, I just think it's one of those things. It was a bad decision that's having ripple effects that just would have made a lot of things a lot better. Okay, now this one might be a little controversial. Sorry to the homie Monet. But what do I think people are talking about too much? Rhea Ripley. I'm sorry. Listen, this is not to downplay anything that's great about Rhea. Rhea is great at her job. She's got the look. She's a super athlete, phenomenal wrestler. She plays her role as this enforcer character for the Judgment Day, one that can be a threat to women or to men. She does this so well, okay? But I think it's a little, for all the TV time she's gotten, I don't feel invested in her matches. For somebody who's gotten as much TV time, as much camera time, as many title defenses, as long as a title reign as she's gotten, I don't feel invested in the outcome of Rhea Ripley's matches at all. If Rhea Ripley lost that title on Monday Night Raw next week, I'd be surprised because she's had the title for so long, but I wouldn't be like, oh God, what a great title reign. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it was cool. It's been a lengthy title reign, but I can't say that there is a thing about Rhea Ripley that is a reason she's being presented so far above the rest of the women in the division on Monday Night Raw. Swig of coffee for the working man. Happy New Year. All right. My last thing for WWE. What do I think people are not talking about enough? The thing I think people are not talking about enough, Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair. Listen, Bianca Belair had a phenomenal run as the Raw Women's Champion. 3 straight WrestleManias, either defending or winning a title. And every WrestleMania, her entrances are phenomenal. Bianca Belair, she represents WWE in such a great way. She's doing, different shows and, representing different products. I mean, like I've said it before, I think Bianca Belair is absolutely like the perfect professional wrestler in every way possible. And I think she's somebody kind of like a John Cena where fans may get tired of her, but who cares? Because she's really that great. Like the only thing she could probably do better is learn how to do the John Cena promo, right? Where you really are just mastering the crowd and what they want to do and getting them to stomp and cheer no matter what. If she adds something like that to her game, Bianca Belair is going to be something that we've never seen before. But you know who already is something we've never seen before? Becky Lynch. Give it up for Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch is, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, Becky Lynch is the greatest female WWE superstar of all time. Yes, I said it. Listen, no matter what you give her to do, she makes it matter. She had this feud with Trish Stratus where she helped to reestablish Trish Stratus as an all-time great. And that's not to take anything away from Trish Stratus because Trish absolutely did her part. But Becky has been able to do that consistently with everybody who they put her against, okay? She went down to NXT, popped a huge rating for NXT, a bigger rating than I think Seth Rollins popped when he went down there, a bigger rating than any superstar popped when they went down there. Becky Lynch did that. She went down there, had a phenomenal match with Tiffany Stratton. And she, in the eyes of many, solidified Tiffany Stratton as a future superstar. Tiffany Stratton may not have done anything differently in her matches with Becky Lynch than she did with anybody else, but because she did them in matches with Becky Lynch, now we see star. We see star now, okay? Becky Lynch did that. I mean, again, not to take away from Tiffany Stratton because she did her part, but you gotta, wrestling is a dance, right? You gotta have a good partner to dance with. Nobody can go in there unless you're doing Road Warrior matches from the 1980s where you just go in there, clotheslining people, beating the crap out of them. You can't do a wrestling match today in which the other person comes out looking great and you weren't a part of that. That's just not how wrestling works, right? This is not how wrestling works. So to me, I think Becky Lynch took another step this year towards solidifying her status as the greatest of all time. And I don't think people are talking about it enough. All right. So that's where I'm at with that. Now, AEW. Let's talk about AEW. To me, the best story of the year with AEW was the rise of Swerve. The rise of Swerve Strickland. I think this has been a very well-told story. Swerve is a villain, but people can't help but cheer him because that AEW fan base likes a bad guy who's winning. I don't quite understand it, but whatever. That's just who they are. And the way they're doing it, they're having Swerve beat a lot of AEW stalwarts, the AEW originals. Hangman Page, right? He's one of the original elites that the AEW fan base hangs their hat on, right? The people that they love, the people that represents their organization, the one they love. He had a long feud with him, disgusting matches, drinking blood and all this other stuff, doing all of that stuff. Swerve keeps coming out on top. And this is in a company in which, like, AEW, say what you want, but they have not presented a ton of black wrestlers as, like, true contenders, right? Like, I mean, you know, the Acclaim were able to get over doing the scissor me thing, but they haven't really presented a lot of black wrestlers as true contenders. And so they are actually doing that for Swerve, and I think they're doing it right. They're slow playing it. They're having him, you know, get wins against people that the AEW audience sees as top guys, and it's validating him in their eyes. And you know, most people think Swerve is absolutely going to be the AEW champion at some point in this upcoming year. Oh, in this year that we're in now. So to me, that's the best AEW story of the year. Now, the worst AEW story of the year is Juice Robinson being anti-Semitic for 1 week. That was weird to me. That was weird. And listen, what it was is it was just a fumble on a storyline. It was a fumble and a backtrack on a storyline. So for those of you that don't know, Juice Robinson, he has a thing where he would punch people with a roll of quarters. Again, it's just a form of cheating, right? By holding something hard in your hand to knock out your opponents with. MJF has told as part of his story that he would get bullied growing up. People would throw quarters at him and they would, you know, say things like pick him up or something like that. Because that was, you know, that's part of, you know, negative stereotypes that people use to bully Jewish people, right? So they did something that I thought was really clumsy, okay? They had Juice Robinson threaten MJF with a roll of quarters. But MJF got super offended, super heated about this, right? They're like, oh, you better keep that away from me, or, you know, whatever. And I knew what they were doing, but I thought it was weird because it didn't make sense because the roll of quarters was already a part of Juice Robinson's act. And at no other point was him using this roll of quarters a way to be anti-Semitic, right? So now all of a sudden, like if you're a bad guy and punching people with a roll of quarters is your thing, why is it a racial thing because you want to do it to MJF, right? Like so if you're a bad guy and you hang people, right? Is it necessarily a racial thing if you want to do it to a black person? I mean, I get it, right? As a black person, I'm like, yo, dog, like that's crazy. Why would you even like cross that bridge? And by the way, that's exactly what happened. When they crossed that, they got a lot of pushback from people who are, you know, advocates against anti-Jewish speech and representation in the TV spaces. And so they basically abandoned the storyline. And here's the thing. I thought that was an opportunity to create awareness about what that is and why, why that's a thing. Because again, if you know that this is a part of Juice Robinson's act, then you don't necessarily understand why this is offensive now, right? The fact that they abandoned the storyline, I thought I thought it was a missed opportunity. I just think in general, if you have a chance to kind of educate your fan base about something, and again, make your top star look like a hero fighting against something that's very important to him. MJF did tweet that this was the type of story that it was very important for him to tell, but they buckled, they abandoned the story, and it was just a weird thing that happened for 1 week, and they never ever went back to it. So to me, that made it the worst story because they abandoned it and never followed up on it. All right. My best moment of the year for AEW was playing Wembley Stadium. I thought that was phenomenal. They sold out something like 60, 70, 80,000. Who even knows what the number is anymore? The point is, they put tens of thousands of people in Wembley Stadium, and it was a phenomenal day. It was a phenomenal accomplishment for AEW, for everybody who got to wrestle. That's the biggest event they've ever done. It's one of the biggest events in wrestling history, and they deserve big credit for that. So shout out to AEW. My worst moment of the year in AEW was CM Punk being fired after yet another embarrassing incident. This one was apparently at Wembley Stadium. At some point early in the show, he attacked Jungle Boy. Tony Khan later went on TV, said he feared for his own life, and that was the last time anybody heard of CM Punk in AEW. Apparently, he just couldn't stop fighting people. So he's been punished by having to go back to WWE and main event WrestleMania. Great job. Great job by all involved. But seriously, the embarrassing incidents just were piling up for AEW. So it was really better that they just parted ways. I'm sure that on some level, Tony Khan hates that he handed WWE a WrestleMania main eventer, but he wasn't doing good in your company. He wasn't good for your company. So, it's best to cut your losses and move on. All right. My superstar of the year in AEW, this is a tie for me. It's a tie between MJF and Tony Storm. So MJF, for all the obvious reasons, he's a great talker. He had a lot of great matches. He absolutely was the face of AEW. And yeah, he was a champion all year. You got to give him credit. So I give him credit for that. The other thing, though, is Tony Storm. Listen, one of the things that I respect in wrestling is when somebody kind of makes a way for themselves. AEW famously doesn't have writers. So the story is that they like to, have wrestlers come up with the stuff they want to do and collaborate on it, how to make it pop on TV and yada, yada, yada. But that doesn't work for a lot of wrestlers because everybody is not that kind of creative. Tony Storm, she was the AEW Women's World Champion. She lost the title, and then she had this change in her character where she descended into madness, right? And now she's become this 1950s movie star who's foul-mouthed and she just does a lot of outlandish things, and it's a lot of fun. It's one of the most fun things on AEW TV every week. So shout out to Tony Storm. She gets my AEW Superstar of the Year. Now, what are people talking about too much from AEW? In my opinion, the thing people were talking about too much was this Devil storyline. I thought the storyline just dragged on too long. I thought they should have put the title on Adam Cole at Wembley and probably should have done something where the reveal happened and Adam Cole was revealed as the Devil. But instead, very similar to WWE, not putting the title on Cody Rhodes, I think it had a ripple effect. By not putting the title on Adam Cole, then you create a sequence of events in which Adam Cole was running down to the ring to help MJF against Samoa Joe. He jumps off the ramp and blows up his ankle, okay? If Adam Cole had been the champion, he's not doing that spot, okay? And that probably threw this whole thing into the blender. And it just took way too long. It was dragged out too long. We didn't have any idea. I thought there were too many possible directions it could have gone and not enough solid clues and hints. And it just didn't feel like it had any teeth. It just dragged on for so long. We did finally get the reveal where Adam Cole was the devil and he's now leading a stable of people who have been, I don't know, I guess offended by MJF, right? It's Matt Taven and Mike Bennett and Wardlow and Roderick Strong, right? And so they're going to be Adam Cole's goons. And I guess once MJF comes back after healing up his shoulder, that's going to be the heel army versus MJF. So that's cool. At least they've set us up for what will come in the year ahead. So that's cool. Now, the thing I think that people are not talking about enough in AEW is where the hell is Britt Baker? Where the hell is Britt Baker? Britt Baker was the face of the AEW women's division, and she has barely been on TV lately. They did a reality show, and they put Britt Baker as the star of that. Like, they clearly love Britt Baker, and they clearly see her as somebody they want to be a forward-facing talent for this company. But she has disappeared off AEW television, and I don't have any answers for you. She liked some tweets a couple of weeks ago talking about how little TV time she's getting, which made some people think maybe she's the devil, right? So, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about her dealing with an injury. I just don't know. I think it would be interesting to give some sort of explanation as to where Britt Baker has been. I think in part they pulled her back on TV so they could develop some other women because they felt she had too much of a presence that was not allowing anyone else to grow. But I don't know, man. I think they could have done something with her, kept her on TV. She was one of their best attractions. And we haven't seen her at all for a long time. And so it's weird to me. I don't quite get it. And they should give us some sort of explanation. I think people should ask more questions about it, right? If you're an AEW fan, you should be asking, where's Dr. Britt Baker, DMD? All right. TNA. All right, let's go. I have been an Impact Wrestling fan probably since 2007 or so, 2008, something like that. And amazingly, I've stuck with it through all this time, through all of the, bad looks and the change to Global Force Wrestling, change to Impact Wrestling. And now, as of 2024, they have rebranded once again as TNA. So, TNA's best story of the year was Mickie James' last rodeo. I thought it was great. I think in the past 2 years, Mickie James' run in Impact Wrestling has solidified her as the greatest TNA knockout of all time. I think she's done phenomenal work over multiple generations. And this last run has just been so good. The series of matches she had with Deonna Purrazzo, putting over Tasha Steelz. To me, Mickie James is the GOAT of the knockouts, absolutely. And her last rodeo story, I just thought was great. It gave every match meaning, and the matches delivered. She delivered on story, on emotion, on all the stuff that makes wrestling fun to watch for me. So to me, that was the best story that TNA did all year. The worst story that TNA did it wasn't really a story, but it was Josh Alexander's title reign ending in injury. Now, Josh Alexander is a phenomenal wrestler who I think doesn't get marketed properly, right? Like, I think they should do some more fun things with his entrance to make it feel like more of a big deal when he hits the arena. I think they should do some more fun vignettes to give him some more personality. He cuts a really good promo, but he's a very straightforward type of dude. And I think that they don't do him enough favors by finding other ways to make fans look at him as this larger than life type of character. I think if you did that, it would make his wrestling pop even more because his wrestling matches are phenomenal. And so Josh Alexander is this guy who was carrying the company with phenomenal wrestling matches. And I thought they were running him into the ground. And sure enough, he got injured and he had to drop the title. He had this phenomenal title run, the longest title run in Impact Wrestling history. And he had to drop the title due to an injury. And that resulted in Steve Maclin winning the title at some pay-per-view, but it was against Kushida. And I was like, there's no question on who's going to win this match. Like there's no mystery here. All right. The best moment for Impact Wrestling / TNA was the TNA return announcement that happened at the end of October's Bound for Glory pay-per-view. They did the whole pay-per-view, the main event, and then as the show is looking like it's going to go off the air, they aired a video, and the climax of the video was the big announcement that TNA was returning. I thought it was really cool. It was a great moment. And, I thought there was a lot of excitement around it. You know, they did a TNA reunion. They did a 1,000th episode, and it was cool. There was a lot of conversation around it. They drew a really good crowd for it. And so the TNA name clearly had some value, had some positive equity. And so rebranding to TNA, I thought was actually a good move. At first, I didn't like it because my thought was associated with all the negative of the TNA brand name. But I think what they did was they capitalized on the good of the TNA brand name. And hopefully they get off to a great start at Hard to Kill with the rebrand, to TNA again, all right? My worst moment of the year for Impact Wrestling / TNA was Josh Alexander losing to Will Ospreay at their most recent set of tapings. Now, for me, one thing that I thought that Scott D'Amore has not done a good job of is protecting TNA's top stars. A perfect example is Kenny Omega's belt collector run. I thought he just ran through so many Impact Wrestling stars and then didn't even have the courtesy to drop the title to an Impact Wrestling star. He dropped it to Christian on Rampage. Christian dropped it to Josh Alexander. I thought that would have been a huge win for Josh Alexander if he got to bring the title back to Impact Wrestling from Kenny Omega. But they didn't do that. And I thought this was another example of Scott D'Amore not protecting Impact wrestlers. Josh Alexander is your hood ornament, right? He's been the guy who's been carrying the company, and you're going to have him lose to an outsider. I just don't think that's a good look. You know, just saying somebody can just come in from the outside and beat one of your top stars. Like, to me, I just, I'm not a big fan of that. And I think you got to do better with that going forward. Josh Alexander, I think, is going to have a rematch with Will Ospreay, either at Hard to Kill or in the taping after Hard to Kill. And I expect Josh Alexander to get his win back as, a boost to TNA and the brand. Now, my superstar of the year for Impact Wrestling is Trinity. Give it up for Trinity. I'm a big fan. When Trinity walked out of WWE, it was huge news. When she appeared in Impact Wrestling, it was huge news. And they did successful pay-per-view buys because of her. They sold a lot of merchandise because of her. Their production looked better because of her. She had the entrance with the black lights and the glowing and the glow sticks. And you don't see anybody else in Impact Wrestling who has that much of an interactive entrance. And I think that type of stuff it makes the shows fun to go to. So I haven't been a big fan of the matches that Trinity has had with Deonna Purrazzo. I don't think they have great chemistry. Deonna Purrazzo is more of like a catch submission move type of wrestler. And Trinity is more of a big move, acrobatic type of wrestler. So I don't think their chemistry has been great in the ring, but I definitely have enjoyed the matches because Trinity has won them all. So shout out to that. Now, here's the thing about Impact / TNA that I think people are talking about too much. Surprise signings. I am not a fan of building your attraction around surprise signings, we can learn a lesson from Tony Khan, right? Tony Khan always teases these big announcements, and they never seem to live up to the hype, right? The biggest announcement that they had was the signing of CM Punk, and that one, he never actually announced it, right? So teasing, oh, you're going to see this big signing. It's one of our biggest signings ever. To me, I think you can never make people happy. People are never going to truly be satisfied with what you deliver. So you might as well not promise. Don't make promises, because people are never going to be like, oh my God, that was such a surprise. Like, when's the last time in wrestling that's actually happened? Especially for a non-WWE company. So don't build around surprise signings. Build your shows around the stories of the matches that we know we're going to see. So that way, when we're watching these matches in the arena and at home, we're actually invested in the outcome. We're not just watching to see who can do the best moves. Because for me, like, that's not what I get the fun out of wrestling for. I get the fun out of caring about the characters. Like when Moose went to Josh Alexander's house, like, to me, I was like, yo, you gotta die. You can't do that. So like, doing that type of thing, to me, right, that's what sells me a match. It's not the amount of false finishes. It's not the amount of moves. I enjoy that stuff while the match is happening, but I want to be invested in the story. And I think that's a much better path forward than building a show, building the attraction around surprise signings. Okay. The thing I think, I actually just kind of talked about this, but the thing I think people are not talking about enough is, why do I actually care about these matches, right? TNA has Hard to Kill coming up in a couple of days. Why do I care about any of these matches? You got to give me story. You got to give me personal beef. You got to give me issues. Create some vignettes. Do something. Give me some reason to care about these matches. And I think they haven't done a great job of that. That's one thing I think they can do much better going forward. So that's what I hope to see more from TNA in 2024. And that was my best and worst of 2023. Okay, that was a long show. We did about an hour and 20 minutes. Thank you guys for hanging in there. I appreciate you guys so much. This has been a lot of fun for me to do. Look, man, that's all I got. I enjoy doing these shows. Thank you guys for the feedback. Every like, every share is appreciated. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the content with a friend, tell a friend to tell a friend. Let's bring more people into the conversation. Until next time, I'm TW. Peace.